Hello and welcome to the 2020 CS Music Online Vocal Convention. We're so excited to have you all here, and we're excited to welcome today's presenter, Nicholas Pallesen. So grateful that he was able to join us. Before we get started, just a couple of housekeeping items. So everyone, as I just mentioned, we are going to ask you to keep yourself muted unless you are asked to unmute yourself, and then we'd be happy to hear from you. Nicholas is going to be doing a presentation for us, and then we do hope to have a little bit of time for questions and answers. And I'll put some instructions on that in the chat area. So make sure you have your chat open and ready to ask questions. And then we'll also allow a digital raised hand. And so that's at the bottom of your participant screen that you can click on raise hand and ask Nicholas a question directly. So yes, let's go ahead and get started. Nicholas, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. If you want to introduce yourself, so glad to have you here.
Hey, thank you, and hello, everybody. And I'm glad we got it to work out. Apparently, Zoom has been having a lot of technical stuff going on today. So, but glad we're all here. And just one little kind of thing. Once we get to the Q&A, I'd like to actually just have people come on live and ask their question to me live, rather than have them put the question in the chat box, because I'd rather kind of talk directly to the person. So let's do that if that's cool.
The only challenge with that is that sometimes people don't have access to the audio and a mic in that way, or they're not as comfortable. But I think that's great. We'll try to do that as much as possible. So
yeah,
just digitally raise your hand. Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, that would be a lot easier and a lot more fun for me. I like talking to people. So yeah. So anyway, so glad to have you here, and thanks for choosing to be here. So I'm Nicholas Pallesen, and I work basically, the best way to describe my job is I help people feel more comfortable in their own skin. I help people fall in love with their humanity and feel more free to kind of just play the game of life, to kind of play more more fully in whatever they're doing, in their performing on stage and in their lives off stage. And just helping people to be able to find solid ground and to find peace, to find the clarity that they need, to find the inspiration that they need when it comes time to creating art and just living their lives. And I understand this kind of from a cool angle, because I spent many years performing myself. I for over a decade I performed internationally in Europe, all over the US, sang at the Met, sang at Chicago Lyric, sang at English National Opera in London, had a lot of success in a lot of the opera competitions. And so I've seen kind of the whole gamut of the career, both the highs and the lows, because for all of those cool things that I just told you, I've also been rejected hundreds of times. I've had people write horrible reviews about my singing and my coaching. I've dealt with all the lows as well, and so I really kind of get where we're at, from all angles, because when people come talk to me, it's like, yeah, I mean, I've been there, and it's nice to be able to then kind of take the training that I have and to be able to integrate that with my performance experience to really speak to artists in a way that I think will help them kind of get out of their own way, get out of their head, and be more fully present in their performing and present in their life. And this is my fifth year performing at the, not performing, I'm not performing at this, I'm speaking. This is my fifth year speaking at the convention, and I'm glad it worked out for us to do this virtually. So I'm going to talk for a little bit, and then I want to take the rest of the time and let it be for you, to let it be whatever would be most helpful for you to kind of explore. So I don't know if any of you guys heard, but apparently there's a rumor that we are living in very uncertain times. I'm I feel like I'm being told that about every 5 seconds. You know, on the news, on commercials, on Facebook, on Instagram, everywhere. We are living in times of uncertainty. We are living in very uncertain times. And I know that that's scary for a lot of people. I know that, I mean, I know personally, I mean, practically all of my income from March through the end of, now it's looking like through the end of July, is pretty much been wiped out. I've lost almost all my work, lost almost all my income, had tons of residencies and workshops canceled. Um, a lot of people not being able to work with me anymore because of their own kind of financial challenges. So, it's been an interesting time for me too. And quite an adjustment, as I'm sure it's been for every single one of us. Um, and yet, in the class, when I talked about the title of the class, I talked about thriving in an ever-changing world. And I actually do think that's possible. I do think, I mean, I've noticed that many times throughout this situation, I found myself, not necessarily feeling like super on top of the world and like everything's perfect and everything's amazing, but feeling the sense of contentment, feeling the sense of being okay, feeling the sense of aliveness and possibility. And so I really do think it's possible to thrive in an ever-changing world. And I want to talk about kind of what I think we've already got going for us to help us with that. So this isn't going to be a class of here's 7 strategies to thrive in an uncertain world. It's more about an invitation to kind of notice, because everything that I'm going to talk about in this class, to my mind, is stuff that's already in you, traits and qualities that you already possess. And it's just a matter of noticing it, of kind of being able to see that that's really everything that we've got going for us. So, like I said, we're kind of being reminded everywhere we turn that these are very uncertain times, and for sure they are. That's absolutely true. Now, what I think at the same time is that's kind of, like I said, that's really scaring a lot of people, and I think a big part of the reason why is because we're kind of taking a look at everything going on right now, and almost as if we have this idea that there was a certain world, and then a coronavirus happened, and then the world became uncertain. But I actually think what's more true is that we've always been living in uncertain times. We've never really known how anything was going to turn out. We might have really good ideas, we might have really good educated guesses, but we've never really known how anything is going to unfold, how anything is going to turn out. So, to my mind, here on May 25th, the world is exactly as uncertain today as it was on February 1st, January 1st, as uncertain as it was a year ago. And that might seem kind of like, oh no, crazy, that's scary. But I think that's really good news. I think there's something so comforting about knowing that, well, it's not like the world suddenly became uncertain. We just kind of woke up collectively to the fact that we've been kind of living in this illusion that it was certain and that it's not, it actually isn't. But here's why I think that's good news. So I was having a moment a few weeks ago where I was talking with my mentor and about kind of trying to Can we make sure everybody's muted? Yeah, great, awesome, thanks. So I was talking with my mentor, and I was kind of having a moment because I was like, I have no idea what's going to happen. I have no idea how things are going to turn out, and like I've lost all my work and all my income for the next few months. Like how, all that stuff. And he mentioned something about being willing to hang out in the unknown just a few minutes longer, and that really kind of hit me because on one level I knew it was true, but on another level, it really upset me. I got pretty upset. I was pretty ticked off because I was like, "No, I don't want to wait 5 minutes longer. I want to know now. I want to know like 3 weeks ago. Come on." And and I was like, "Well, what is that? Like, why am I so afraid of the unknown? Why am I so scared of it?" And then it was funny because this thought like occurred to me that hadn't occurred to me before. And the thought was, yeah, duh, Nicholas. Like, why are you so afraid of the unknown? You've been living in the unknown your entire life. And it was this moment where I went, oh my gosh, that's so true. That we've been living our entire lives in the unknown, in uncertainty, never really knowing what's going to happen. And somehow we've all made it this far. Somehow we're all still here. And when you look kind of through the history of the world, gosh, how much stuff has happened in the world over the last like several centuries. Other pandemics, world wars, terrorist attacks, all sorts of things happening in the world, all sorts of challenges. And yet it's interesting how every single time we've always found a way. We've always figured out some way to kind of get on the other side of it, to move beyond it, to kind of solve the problem, to find those solutions. And I was thinking, yeah, that's true. Like okay, I'm 41. I'm an old fart, okay? But like but I was like realizing like I've kind of been going through my life for 41 years never really knowing what's going to happen. And yet every single time a challenge has come my way, I've always found a way. I've always figured something out. And I think that's true for all of us. That life hasn't always gone how we've expected it to, or how we liked, or how we would have planned, or how we had hoped it would. And yet we've always seemed to kind of figure out a way to kind of get on the other side of it, to move beyond it, to grow from it, to learn from it, to overcome it. And so what I think is interesting is that it's kind of like right now when we're in the midst of this kind of pandemic, and everything, the world has kind of been kind of ground to a halt. In a way, I kind of feel like we're trying to use the wrong tools for the job to kind of navigate this. Not everybody, but some people, I think. We think that our security, we think our sense of safety, we think our sense of figuring it out is going to come from certainty, from knowing what's going to happen, from being able to plan, from being able to kind of figure out a plan to move forward. But here's the thing, like we've been seeing, that's not really the case. We've never really known. So I don't think that our strength, I don't think that what's gotten us so far in life has been our ability to know what's going to happen, to plan every little detail. I think our strength, I think what's gotten us through this, the tools for the job for an ever-changing world are our flexibility, adaptability, our ability to adjust, our ability to kind of respond to what shows up along the way, our ability to innovate, our ability to kind of take a fresh look at things. And if you really kind of think, I mean, that's kind of how we've all gotten through life. Something shows up that we're kind of like, how am I going to get through this? How am I going to figure this out? and we somehow we find a way. We always find a way to seem to be able to adjust to whatever life is kind of throwing at us. And so I think that our strength in times like these is in that ability in us to adapt, to respond, to adjust to whatever's happening in the moment. And and what's really cool is that I think that's not only just an innate kind of quality to human beings, but we musicians are really, really good at it because it's kind of the name of our game. Like, think about how, as artists, as performers, the name of our game is we are constantly responding in real time to what shows up. That's the nature of making live performance, of making live music, is that you kind of never know what's going to happen. And so sometimes, the conductor might take a weird tempo and you're kind of like, whoa, what are you doing? Whoa, that's not what you did last time. Or our scene partner kind of forgets to bring their prop, or they kind of do funny blocking that we weren't used to, or or we kind of blank out and forget our words for a minute. Like, there's like so many things that happen in live performance, and yet we've always kind of, something occurs to us, something pops into our head. Oh, okay, to adjust. Like, by nature, we musicians are flexible. We adapt. We're built to kind of respond in real time to what shows up in the moment. That's our gift. That's our superpower. So the great thing is that, by the nature of what we do as musicians, we've got all the right tools for the job. We've got everything that we need to be able to show up and respond to what shows up. Now, what is that in us? I think what that is in us is there's an instinct in us, that there's this kind of wisdom in us, a knowing in us that you might call your instinct, you might call your intuition, you might call whatever you might call it. There's something in us that knows. There's something in us that, like, it's like, have you ever lost your keys or lost your phone, and you don't know where it is, and you're trying really, really, really hard to figure out where it is, and for the life of you, no matter how much you're thinking, no matter how hard you're thinking, you can't remember where they are. And then at a certain point, you just kind of give up. You get frustrated. You're like, oh, I'm done. I am so over this. And then it's all, isn't it funny how it's like in that moment, something shows up, some thought that wasn't there before kind of popped into your head. Oh yeah, remember that? You remember today you actually went into that other room first, and so you're like, oh, and then you go in there, and there's your phone, there's your keys. Or like, think about the times when you've been performing and something kind of goes off on stage, kind of not quite right. And it's always amazing how there's some idea that pops into your head of how to react to it, how to respond to it. And it really didn't come from us, because if it came from us, we'd be sitting there trying to think really hard about it. But it's like it just kind of pops into our head. It just shows up for us. Well, I think that there is that in each of us. There's this kind of real time, in the moment instinct, in the moment knowing, that kind of knows exactly what to do right now. And when we're willing to kind of let that show up, it's incredibly reliable for us. But we're kind of taught in society that, the answer to everything is going to come by thinking harder about it. You've got to think more about it, think really hard and work it out in your head. But like, that doesn't really work out well when we're trying to find our phone or our keys. Like, there's a reason why. I mean, I don't know. I mean, have any of you guys ever noticed that you get really cool ideas in the shower, right? You're not trying to get great ideas. You're not trying to think really hard about it. In fact, the opposite is true. You're kind of just showering. And it's because you're not trying so hard. that suddenly ideas pop into your head. So right now, people are kind of trying to figure out how to move forward, how to kind of take those next steps. And I think it's great because in a way, what I love about this is that in a way it's kind of forcing all of us to take a fresh look. I think it's so cool to see how even in the industry, the performing arts industry, for many years, people have been talking about all of these things that really are fundamentally flawed that need to be addressed, in terms of making sure that artists get paid, even in situations like this, making sure that the people are taken care of in case things like this happen. And people have been trying to make those changes for years, and yet now we've had a pandemic and it's kind of thrown everything out the window. And now, like, people are mobilizing, people are organizing, and people are starting to make a lot of changes in that area, saying we need to take a look and we can't keep doing business the way we were before. And I think it's kind of cool that we get a chance to kind of do that for ourselves, to kind of go, okay, wait, is this what I actually want? Is this the life that I want? Is this how I want to be living my life? Is this what I want to be doing? And if so, to kind of be willing to let that instinct in us kind of show up to kind of give us those fresh ideas. So the other thing I think, and this is kind of the last thing that I'll say, and then I want to open it up to you guys, is another tool that we think uh, helps us with the job is fear. People often talk about fear, it keeps me safe. Fear is going to get me through this, right? I've actually found it's quite the opposite. That fear kind of just makes our minds really, really noisy. And fear, when we get so caught up in the fear, it's really hard to hear that inner knowing. It's really hard to hear that instinct in us. And it kind of gets in the way of that showing up for us. So it's like if you're driving the car and you got the radio on, like, blasting full out loud, and you're so caught up in the radio, it's really hard to hear the GPS. Because if you ever notice, the GPS is just kind of like, in 500 feet, turn left. In 2 miles, take this exit. It's just kind of matter of fact. It's just kind of like, hey, do this. But if we're so caught up in the radio, sometimes it's really hard to hear that voice, because it's almost like a still small voice. It's almost like just kind of a very simple matter of fact kind of voice in us. But I think that we think by listening to the radio, we're gonna we're gonna be okay. But here's the thing: when you're driving a car, the radio doesn't tell you what exit to take. The radio doesn't tell you where to turn left. The radio doesn't tell you where to keep going straight, but the GPS does. And I think fear is just a lot like the car radio. Sometimes it can be really loud, sometimes it can be really compelling. Sometimes it might even be a cool tune, and you might be tempted to sing along with it, but it's not gonna get you to your destination. Now, I don't think that we can turn fear off. I don't think that we can just train our brains to where we just never ever feel fear ever again. But but I do think that just because a song is playing on the radio doesn't mean you have to sing along. But, in fact, I don't know if many of you are familiar with Elizabeth Gilbert. She wrote Eat, Pray, Love, and she wrote Big Magic. There's a book, Big Magic, that she's kind of really well known for lately. And she kind of talks about this. She talks about kind of like fear as being, I'm going to totally butcher what she said, totally paraphrase it, but she says something to the effect of, okay, fear, you get to be here, but you're going to be in the back seat. Like you're taking the back seat. You ain't driving this car. I'm not going to let you touch the wheel. You get to be here, you get to say your stuff, but I'm driving the car. And she said it much more elegantly and beautifully than I just did. But but I really love that idea that it's not that we have to get rid of fear. It's not that we have to just stop being afraid. It's about realizing that, yeah, fear might be there sometimes, but it doesn't have to drive the car. We don't have to engage with it just because it's there. We don't have to sing along just because that's on the radio. Fear isn't the right tool for the job. Clarity is that the more we listen to the GPS, the more we listen for that kind of knowing in us, it'll show up and it'll give us exactly what we need in exactly the moment we need it. Now, that might not mean when we think we need it. It might not mean when we want it, but it'll show up when we need it with whatever step we need right now. And so I always tell people that kind of once you realize that the fear might be there, but it can just take the back seat, doesn't even have to sit up front with you. You're more present because if you're not up here trying to kind of deal with all of this, it's a whole lot easier just to be here. And it's like we all know when we're driving and we're really present to driving, we drive a whole lot better. And we can notice the signs on the road that are giving us the information we need a whole lot better than if we're driving distracted. So for me, the more that we just allow ourselves to be present, to be here now, whatever we need now, we'll know. And then we'll go do that, and then the next thing, and the next thing. So, I really do like I've noticed that even though I've lost all my income, I've noticed that even though I still have no idea what's going to happen in my job and my work beyond August, because I have other things that might get canceled, they might not, I don't know. But I've noticed that amidst all of that kind of upheaval in my life, I notice that I've been really, really happy. I notice, not always, not always. I've had some moments where that were not so great. But for the most part, I've been really, really happy. I felt the sense of aliveness. I felt the sense of thriving. And I feel this just kind of deep comfort, this deep peace, kind of knowing that if there's something I need to do, if there's something I need to know, I'll know. And if I don't know right now, it's probably because I don't need to know anything right now. So just keep staying the course. But when something shows up that needs my attention, needs some action, needs some work on my part, I'll know. And we just I follow those nudges, and it's been really kind of cool to see where that takes. So I think that's kind of the formula. The more willing we are to just be present, the more willing we are to kind of say, well, what do I know to do now? I don't know what to do next month. I don't know what to do in August. I don't know what to do next year. But what do I know to do in this moment? That's solid ground. That's what we do know. And each step leads to the next one and the next and the next. And then before you know it, every little step you've taken is added up to a big leap. And you're right where you need to be. So that I think is our superpower. Our ability to adapt, our ability to respond, our ability to adjust, you know, and we've got this infinite creativity in us, and we're seeing it in the world right now. how people have built hospitals and, you know, taken breweries, and instead of brewing beer, they make hand sanitizer. And, you know, like, you see so much creative innovation happening, even in the performing arts. Like, so many different mediums and forums for creating and for performing that people would have just never thought of before are now suddenly popping up. All these, like, videos that people are making, and, you know, and all the different performances and the different venues and places people are performing. There's so much creativity and so much innovation happening right now because we've all got that in us. If we're willing to just listen for the GPS, hang out in the unknown a little longer than maybe we want to, but trusting that the GPS will show up with exactly what we need right now. So I wanna kind of turn it over to you. We've got about a half hour, and I wanna turn it over to you to kind of go anywhere that you want to go. There's a couple of different things I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear anything, if there's anything that I've brought up that really resonated with you, that kind of spoke to you, maybe was helpful in some way. I'd love to hear that. If you have any questions, I'd love to hear that as well. And it can be related to this topic, or it could be related to, you know, anything else. It doesn't have to be just on this topic. If there's other questions that maybe don't feel as related to you, feel free to ask them. I'm here. I want to be available. I'm yours. So um, so what so what we'll do is, we'll kind of turn it over to you now, and I'll answer as many questions as I can. And about 5 minutes before the end, I'm going to wrap it up, give you guys a little bit of information, and talk to you about some of the other classes I have happening this week, and offerings, and then we'll call it a day. So yeah. So Mary, uh, let's.
Hi, yeah, it looks like we've got a couple of raised hands already. So Jennifer Cooper is the first one up. So Jennifer, if you want to unmute yourself.
Hi, hello, how are you? Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you just fine. Hi, where in the world are you?
I'm in Maryland in the United States.
Oh my gosh, I'm in Virginia, United States.
Oh my goodness. Well,
Hello, hello. I might, if I reach out far enough, I might. Yeah.
just gotcha. So I am my history is as a professional opera singer, then musical theater, and now jazz, blues, and pop. So I kind of cross it all over. But I'm also a voice teacher, and I want to ask you about this is really really relevant right now because I have a few students who are high school juniors and seniors who are advanced, who all, of course, lost their title roles in their big musicals. They've lost all their summer stock roles. They've just lost, and they are struggling now to the point where they're even tired of just getting on a screen. If they're just asked to do one more audition on a screen, they're like, I can't do anymore. I need the applause. I need to communicate with an audience. I cannot stand in front of a camera and do this anymore. I've lost my passion for this because I can't communicate with human beings through this medium. Do you have any words of advice and wisdom that I can take to my students who are really, really struggling right now with this?
So I'll just share to you what kind of what comes to mind, and it might not be the answer you're expecting, which
Okay,
is
I'll
why I
take
kind
it.
of paused. Which is why I kind of paused, because I was like, is this really where I want to go with this? And apparently it is. You know, the first thing that really occurred to me is, if they don't want to right now, they don't have to. It's okay if they don't want to do one more video audition. Like, you know, it's been interesting to kind of see how there's been all these different kind of competing mindsets throughout all of this. that there's been the people who are saying, yeah, okay, this is the perfect time to be incredibly productive, and you've got to take advantage of all of this time, and learn new roles, and you've got to like take as many opportunities as you can, and and you've got to create a bunch of stuff, so that you're ready and be productive. And then there's been the people who are like, slow down, like like chill out. Maybe there's a reason the world was kind of ground to a screeching halt. Maybe there's a message in that. Maybe it's a big kind of message to us that maybe we're all kind of pushing a little too hard. And for me, I think that there are probably some people in the world who could afford to slow down a lot. And then there are other people in the world who could probably afford to have a little kick in the butt and get going, you know? And there are people who might fluctuate between the two. Sometimes they might just need to take a day off and then, get back going the next day. But, my initial thought was, well, what if it's okay if they don't want to do it right now, they don't have to, you know? I have a sneaking suspicion they won't feel that way forever, you know? I mean, a lot of people, I think, a lot of people are just kind of overloaded. It's been interesting because, you know, I mean, from the perspective of me being a coach, I've noticed that a lot of the self-help, a lot of the wellness people, like everyone and their mom has done, 5 webinars, and they've done like, online products and online classes. And, I kind of hesitated to do that because I didn't want to add to the noise, because I kind of feel right now that there's a little bit of a sensory overload. People are a little zoomed out.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And so I haven't really put out as much as other people have, just because I've kind of gotten this feel that there's so much happening already. Maybe people are just feeling a little kind of tired. So, my initial thought would be just to kind of let them know that that's okay. If they don't want to do it right now, they don't have to. Like, I don't think that there's a #1 bestseller on Amazon that somebody wrote on how to navigate coronavirus. Like, we're all figuring it out together. There's no right or wrong way. But but if they don't want to, okay, take a break. And maybe, when things settle down, they feel a little more settled, they might want to go do it again, and then go do it. So, yeah, because something I've noticed a lot with people is that people are kind of feeling whatever they're feeling, and then feeling like that's not okay, because they should be feeling this way instead. No, but or like thinking, oh, because I don't want to do one more like video audition, that, am I just really not committed to this? Am I not serious enough? Do I not love this enough? Because if I did, I should want to do it. No, like, look, I don't always feel like coaching, but I would never take that to mean that I don't actually want to coach. Just some days I don't feel like it. Okay. Now, if I want to coach, I do it kind of regardless of how I'm feeling. But if someone just kind of genuinely just doesn't want to right now, okay, cool. Like, what if that's okay? There's something so freeing about it just being okay to feel what you're feeling. Anything in there helpful?
Yeah, absolutely. I think because of course I have the parents checking with me too, because the parents are saying, well, school is gone, but you're still here. They're still meeting with you on Zoom, and they're still asking for you and wanting to work, meaning me, their voice teacher, because I'm the last connection to what they were trying to prepare for, and so yeah, so I thought, oh gosh, I'm starting to have to wear a cap of psychology that I didn't ever want. But that does make sense, and I was really connecting to what you were saying earlier about how, and I was very much like this in my earlier career, of thinking we do have control, thinking that because I've done A and I've done B, I'm going to get C. Like, that's just the way it works. And I was very much like that in my career. And so I'm seeing that in some of these kids where, for instance, the senior, the one who just graduated, you know, she went through that entire MT process of auditioning everywhere and going to the unifieds and traveling around, and, you know, and then assuming that when it came down to her decision making, you know, she had, I think, 6 or 7 to choose from, but could only visit one. And so now her decision making is all screwed up because she can't see the campuses. And then she can't add things to her resume that she thought would be on there. And it's just, everything came to a grinding halt that she had set up. She'd set up all the dominoes for them to make this gorgeous, you know, palace of a life. And it got wrecked, you know? And so when they're in that state of anticipation and it's ripped away, it's then hard to say, okay, well, just sit with that, you know. It's hard to say that to a teenager, you know. It's one thing for an adult to sit with that, but to say that to a not yet frontal cortex developed 17.
Well, you know, and I'll just kind of say this and then we'll move on to the next person. But yeah, I mean, I think, okay, I understand that. And I work with a lot of high school students who come to coach with me, and I am surprised how often when I say what I just said to them, they go, really? Really? You mean I can? Oh my gosh, thank goodness you're the first person who's ever told me that. Oh my gosh, I just feel so relieved. So, you know, they might not be as shocked as you think they might be. Yeah, they just might just need someone just letting them know they have permission to just kind of not feel like, and like I said, I don't think it means you don't love music. I don't think it means you're not serious or committed. I think it just means that right now you don't want to do another video audition. Okay.
Exactly.
Cool. Lots of stuff I don't want to do. Cool. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Who have we got next, Mary?
So Brianna Williams, if you can unmute yourself and you can ask your question. And Nicholas, we can go until a quarter after the hour, so 15 minutes after the hour. But
yeah, that's what I figured.
Yeah, okay. But unfortunately, that's like, we have to cut it off right there.
Yeah, no.
Okay. Perfect.
Hello?
There she is.
Oh, can you hear me?
I can hear you, but I can't see you.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. I'm not able to do the video right now.
Okay.
But yes, I just really had a comment about your concept on how to deal with fear, as far as it can still be there, but just taking the back seat. That kind of blew my mind for a minute because I've never really thought of it that way. I always thought that, you know, that there should be some way to overcome fear, that it shouldn't be there at all. And it's kind of difficult to do that. So just to hear someone else say, you know, it's actually okay that it's there, but it doesn't have to control you. It doesn't have to have that type of effect on you when you're performing. Because as singers, as performers, so much of our life is hearing and taking in the opinions of others about your voice, about technique, performance, reviews, things like that. So that puts a lot of unnecessary stress on you as a person. So just hearing that was amazing. So thank you for that idea.
Oh, you're so welcome. And I think it would be really fun to just keep exploring for yourself. You know, it's like fear used to really, really stop me. I cannot tell you how many blog posts I have not written, how many courses I've not done, how many posts I've not done on social media, how many gigs I didn't take, you know, how many things in my life never happened because fear stopped me. Yeah. And it was often because I kind of misunderstood what fear actually is. You know, I thought fear was telling me something about me or telling me something about my life or how something was going to go. But again, we don't really know how anything's going to go. Case in point, coronavirus, right? But you know, once I really started to see that, oh, fear is just the feeling I get when I get really scared by my thinking. when I start kind of making up these scary futures in my head and all these scenarios, and I start getting caught up in that, like, it's not telling me anything about who I am. It's not telling me anything about what kind of a person I am or how this performance is going to go. It's just saying, hey, yeah, you got some noisy thinking going on right now. Then it was like, oh, okay, cool, good to know. So I can just, drive the car and let fear hang out in the back seat. And, and I still feel fear from time to time. It just doesn't look like a reason to not do something anymore. It doesn't scare me in the way that it used to. And it's been really kind of freeing just to see that, yeah, and you mentioned in performance, and I'll be talking about this a lot more in the class on Wednesday about performance anxiety, that I think there's something so freeing about being able to know that I can show up and do an audition, even if I'm scared, even if I'm feeling fear, and be fully capable of doing amazing work.
Yes.
The fear doesn't have to stop us in the way that we think it is. So I'm really glad that resonated with you. Thanks for sharing that.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you. All right, Mary, who do we got next?
Okay, Zian or Zian? Apologize if I'm...
Yeah. Hi, it's Zion, but that's close enough. I've heard worse situations of it. So I have something that really resonated with me as well as a question. Sure. Something that really resonated with me that you said was this idea that performing is full of uncertainty. I'm a note taker, so I put down performing the thing that you love is full of uncertainty, because I feel like, especially in the 21st century, at least in my case, and I assume in most people's cases, you're performing because you love to do it. You aren't being forced to do it in any way. So the idea that you can take something that you love and a part of something that you love and putting it into a more uncertain time, it's probably stressing you out, or at least it's stressing me out, was really helpful in my mind. And then my question is, it has to do with uncertainty past COVID and before COVID. So what advice would you have for singers doubting their abilities due to larger rejections? So something like for students not getting into their top choice school, or for a professional not getting your dream role that you thought was going to be your breakout gig.
Yeah, so I'll just touch on a couple of things in that. First of all, if what I'm suggesting is true, that we've always lived in uncertainty, that's kind of how the world's always been, then the world is going to be just as uncertain now as it is after COVID. So it seems to me that the same rules for the game apply. That adaptability, that ability to respond to what shows up, that inner knowing in us is going to be really helpful as we kind of navigate and we take a fresh look at opportunities and what makes sense to us and what doesn't. So I've, like I mentioned at the beginning, I've had so many dream roles that I never got. I've been rejected. I think I stopped counting somewhere around like 200. I had a lot of triumphs, but for every triumph, I probably had about 10 rejections and 10 kind of downers. And here's what I kind of say. And it's one of those things that is going to be good news that might sound like bad news. When people come to me and they say, oh, like, I don't know, am I good enough for this? I always say to them, I don't know. You might be. You might be good enough for this. You might not be good enough for this. I don't know. But you don't know either. And it's amazing how often we get this idea in our head, oh, I'm not good enough. Okay, good point, mind. Okay, so I'm just going to stop now. As if we really know what's going to happen and how things are going to turn out. But again, we've never really known. So it seems to me whether someone should continue pursuing opportunities or not is something that only they themselves can answer. And it's something that, you know, only you will know for yourself. I always tell people, if it makes sense to you to keep showing up, keep showing up. Absolutely. If this is what you want to do, if this is what feels right to you, if this is what makes sense to you to do, keep showing up. That's the only way I really know to find out, is to keep showing up and see what happens. And every experience you have gives you feedback. And you take that little piece of feedback and you kind of build the next step from there and build the next step from there. And, you know, so I would say, yeah, keep showing up as long as it makes sense to show up. And if at any point it makes sense to go in a different direction, then do that. You know, you'll be fine either way, regardless of whatever path you end up taking. But it always makes me sad when people stop because of a guess. You know, they just kind of say, well, this is what happens. This is what's happened to me so far. So this is what's just going to always happen to me moving forward. So I should just like quit now. If it feels right to stop, stop. But only if that's what you absolutely know to do. Otherwise, I'd say keep showing up. That's really the only way to know. That's the only way to find out. Like I said, I feel I always am sad when people kind of take their guess and they treat it kind of like it's gospel truth and then go, okay, yeah, we don't really know. So yeah, that, you know, it's that thing, like, you'll know. And as we move into this new world beyond COVID, you'll kind of know, you know, as things start kind of changing and adjusting, you'll know what makes sense in terms of what to do. You know, what opportunities make sense to pursue, what opportunities maybe don't make sense to pursue. Maybe things that you didn't want before that now you want, things that you wanted that maybe now you don't want. Listen to that voice. You'll know what's best for you. But yeah, but please, people, do not ever give up or stop just because of a guess. You know, like, yeah. Anyway, I hope that was helpful.
It was, thank you.
Awesome, thank you. So, you know, rather than try to squeeze someone in, let me just kind of wrap up really quick. That way we can make sure we end on time. And Mary still likes me after this. So let me just kind of tell you, I know that there were several of you who had hands up that we didn't get to. I want to kind of just tell you about some of the other things we have that I'm doing here this week. So Wednesday at 4:00, I am doing a workshop on performance anxiety and audition anxiety called Winning the Mental Game. And this class, it's not your typical performance anxiety class. We're going to talk a lot about why I think that trying to fix performance anxiety is the thing that's making it worse for everybody. And that maybe overcoming performance anxiety requires a lot less effort, a lot less, you know, work than we think it does. That really, and helping people find a place where you're free to show up however you're feeling and know that you can rock it. Like, my approach to performance anxiety isn't about helping people get in the right mindset. It's about helping you see that you can kick butt no matter what mindset you're in. And like, how freeing would it be to just know that whether you show up that day feeling really excited and confident, or whether you show up that day feeling really nervous, you're good to go. You can rock it. So we're going to talk about kind of taking a fresh look at how we've learned to think about performance anxiety and kind of what we can do to take off your plate so that you're free to just show up and be your best, no matter what the circumstances. So that's Wednesday at 4 Eastern, 4 p.m. Eastern time. Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern time is going to be my expo time. And that's a 30-minute expo time. And you're welcome to show up to that. and I'll kind of just let it be an ask me anything kind of thing. So if you didn't get your question answered today, come Thursday, feel free to bring me the question then. Happy to answer as many questions as I can. And by the way, Wednesday during the performance anxiety class, I'll kind of do the same thing I did today. I'll talk for about half of it and then just open it up to you guys for questions for the other half. And then the last thing is throughout the week, I'm offering some 30-minute sessions with individual sessions for anybody that wants to kind of dive deeper into any sort of goals or challenges you have, life or performing. It could be anything. There's nothing off limits. We can really go anywhere that you want. And that's an add-on to the convention. But if you go on Friday morning, if you look at the schedule for Friday morning, it has the link where you can sign up and register for that. And if you end up doing that, then you'll just end up emailing me to kind of set up a time, and we'll set up a time to talk for 30 minutes, and I'll coach you and give you as much support as I can on whatever would be helpful for you. So there's the individual sessions, there's the expo Thursday at 4, there's the class on Wednesday at 4 on performance anxiety. And then, also feel free to reach out to me on Instagram. If you're an Instagrammer, you can follow me at Nicholas Pallesen. I post a lot of videos, I post little blogs there. I'm pretty active on Instagram, just trying to share things that I think are helpful and hopeful for people. So you can find me at Instagram, at Nicholas Pallesen. Follow me there. DM me any questions you have. If you're not able to make any of the things later on this week, feel free to DM any questions that come up for you. Happy to answer any questions. And then also you can check out my website, nicholaspallesen.com. There's a blog there with a bunch of articles. There's a lot going on there. But so I hope to see you later this week, and I'll just leave you with this, which is, yes, we are living in times of uncertainty. And yet, we always have. And yet, we've always, each and every single one of us on this call, however old you are, wherever you are in life, you've made it this far. Living in complete uncertainty, living in the total unknown. You've made it this far. And so what that says to me is that you're built for this. You are built to thrive in the unknown. And you have all the tools, you have all the abilities, you have everything you need to thrive in uncertainty. You've got a GPS that's got your back. If you just let it, if you listen to it. You're built to adapt, you're built to respond, you're built to show up and be able to respond to the moment. So to my mind, you all have everything you need to navigate this pandemic and beyond with more ease, with more grace, with more clarity, and with more purpose. So just know that you're all built for this, friends. You've got this. And every single one of you is absolutely enough right now as is. So thank you so much, and hope to see you guys later around this week. And if not, find me on Instagram or email, and looking forward to seeing you. Until next time, take care, guys.
Thank you so much, Nicholas. That was fantastic. We have so many thank yous going on in the chat. Everybody's just like a little bit mind blown here. So thank you so much. Really appreciate your time. And thanks everyone for joining us. And we'll look forward to seeing you in the next classes.
Take care, everybody.